The sky was calm. The world was busy with normal life. Children going to school, workers rushing to jobs, people laughing in markets. And then the light changed, the sun seemed to dim, shadows stretched across every city, and silence spread like a wave. Above Earth a shape appeared, bigger than mountains, bigger than storms, a ship that blocked the sky itself. It was not one ship but a fleet, silver and black, glowing with strange lines of energy, moving without sound. At first people thought it was the end. Armies prepared missiles, governments sent warnings. Pilots climbed into jets and news screens flashed the same words again and again. They are here. But the aliens did not fire. They did not destroy. They waited, and then a voice came. Not through radios, not through phones, but inside every human mind. The voice was calm, heavy, and impossible to resist. "People of Earth," the voice said. "We come under the law of the Empire. No war, no choice, only union. By our ancient law, your species must obey. The law says one man must marry all sisters of a chosen clan. Only then peace will be given if you refuse. Then fire will fall and earth will burn." The words echoed in every street, in every house, in every heart. Confusion mixed with fear. Some laughed thinking it was a trick. Others cried because they knew it was real. Scientists tried to argue. Leaders demanded reason. Soldiers wanted to fight. But the aliens spoke again, this time showing themselves. Tall figures with silver skin and glowing eyes, standing in beams of light that fell from the sky. "Our empire is older than your sun," they said. "Our law is older than your nation's. No planet has ever refused and lived. You will obey." And then, without asking, without waiting, they chose. Their law required a human. One man, not a soldier, not a leader, not a king, but someone pulled by their strange method. Random to humans, sacred to them. The name was spoken, carried on that same voice that touched every mind, and the world froze. It was not a general, not a scientist, not a hero from stories. It was an ordinary man, living in an ordinary town, someone with no power, no plan, no way to fight back. His name rang out, and he dropped the glass he was holding, his hands shaking, his heart racing. The whole planet now stared at him through screens and broadcasts. He was chosen. He was trapped. He was the one who would decide the fate of Earth. People shouted, "Why him?" But the aliens gave no answer. They only repeated, "The law is sacred. The sisters wait. The marriage must happen, or Earth ends." Fear turned to anger. Anger turned to despair. In the halls of governments, people argued. Should they fight? Should they sacrifice? Should they beg? But deep down, everyone knew. The aliens were too powerful. Their ships too many. Their law unbreakable. The man himself sat in silence. His world broken in minutes. He was just a normal person. He never asked for this. He never wanted this. Yet now billions looked at him as their shield, their only hope. And then the aliens sent the final message of that day. The meeting is set. The human will stand before the sisters. The union will begin. The world could not sleep that night. Streets filled with protests, prayers, and tears. Families held each other close. Soldiers stared at the sky, powerless, waiting, but above them all, in the silence of space, the alien fleet glowed like a second sun, watching, waiting, judging, and preparing. The man who was chosen sat in his small room, his phone ringing endlessly. Messages flooding his screen, but he did not answer. He only stared at the ceiling, whispering to himself, "Why me?" Yet there was no answer, only the echo of that alien voice inside his head. A law older than Earth, a demand stranger than war, and a future that would never be the same. The countdown had begun and humanity had no choice. The first meeting was only hours away, and one man carried the weight of an entire world on his shoulders. The fate of Earth now rested not in armies, not in weapons, but in a marriage that no human could understand. A marriage to all alien sisters, a marriage that might save the planet, or end it forever. And in the dark of night, the alien ships hummed above the clouds as if they were smiling. His name was Daniel Hale, a man who never thought the universe would even notice him. He lived in a small town, worked at an ordinary job, spent his evenings reading books and watching old films. His life was quiet, safe, and unimportant until now, the moment his name echoed through every mind on Earth. Cameras swarmed his street, neighbors stared from windows, soldiers surrounded his home, and leaders demanded to speak to him. But Daniel sat frozen on his couch, his face pale. His heart thundering in his chest, he whispered again and again, "Why me? I am nobody." Yet the alien law did not care. Their system had chosen. Their voices made it clear. There was no appeal, no chance to refuse. When officials entered his home, Their voices were sharp and desperate. "Daniel, listen to us. You must come. The aliens are waiting. We need to understand what they want from you." But Daniel shook his head. "I cannot do this. I am just a man." The president himself appeared on his screen. His face grave, his voice heavy. "Daniel Hale, I know this is not fair. I know this is not right. But if you refuse, billions will die. You are our only chance. You are humanity's only hope." Those words pressed down on him like a mountain. How could he carry such a burden? How could one man represent an entire planet? But the aliens had made it so, and now the world looked at him not as a neighbor, not as a friend, but as a shield. Soon he was escorted by armed guards to a great airfield, where the first alien craft had landed. It stood like a tower of steel and light, humming with strange energy. Its doors shaped like a living creature, opening with a hiss as if breathing. Crowds watched from behind barriers. Some screamed curses. Some begged him to save them. Some simply stared in silence, knowing history was being written before their eyes. As Daniel walked up the ramp, his steps felt heavier with each stride. The air seemed thicker and his body trembled. He wanted to turn back. He wanted to run, but soldiers' eyes and alien voices pushed him forward. Inside the craft, the air was cool and metallic. Glowing veins of blue light ran across the walls, humming softly like whispers. Figures waited for him, tall and elegant, their silver skin reflecting the light, their glowing eyes watching without blinking. One of them stepped forward, taller than the rest, her voice ringing inside his skull instead of through his ears. "Daniel Hale, you are chosen by the law. You will meet the sisters, you will bond. Your survival is Earth's survival." Daniel's voice cracked. "I never asked for this, I do not want this. I am not ready." But the alien only tilted her head, calm, emotionless. "No species is ready, yet all must obey. You will come," and so the craft rose into the sky, engines silent, leaving the airfield behind, leaving Earth's comfort behind. As Daniel pressed his face to the window, seeing his planet shrink below, seeing billions depending on him, his stomach sank. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, he could not tell. Time bent strangely inside the alien vessel, until at last they entered a chamber filled with soft white mist. And there waiting were the sisters. They stood in a half circle, 5 figures cloaked in strange fabrics, their skin glowing faintly, their eyes different shades, their forms similar but unique. They were not identical but carried the same aura, the same bond of blood. The tallest stepped forward first, her posture straight, her voice like iron. "I am Sarana, first sister, I speak for the clan. You are now bound to us." Another moved with sharp, predatory grace, her eyes burning like fire. "I am Kalith, warrior sister, I will test your strength." The third smiled faintly, soft but hiding something deep. "I am Lyra, gentle sister, I will test your heart." The fourth was quiet, her gaze cold and calculating. "I am Vera, mine sister, I will test your will." And the last, the smallest, yet with a gaze more piercing than all the rest, stepped forward last. "I am Lyra, youngest sister, I will test your truth." Daniel swallowed hard, his body shaking, his mind racing. How could one man face them all? How could he stand before not just one, but 5 powerful beings, each with their own demand, their own test? The sisters studied him as if he were a puzzle, a fragile creature holding the fate of worlds. And then Sarana spoke again, her voice heavy with command. "You do not understand our ways. You do not understand our law, but you will learn. Failure means your world burns." Daniel's legs nearly gave out, the weight of those words crushing him. But somewhere in the corner of his heart, a spark lit, small but real. He whispered, "If this is my fate, then I must try." The sisters looked at him, and for the first time one of them, Lyra, tilted her head with something like curiosity, something like hope. But the moment passed quickly. The chamber darkened, the walls shifted, and a door of light opened behind them. Sarana raised her hand and declared, "The trials begin soon, human. Prepare yourself. For tomorrow your life ends as yours and begins as ours." And Daniel, trembling yet standing, realized this was only the beginning. The fate of Earth was now bound to 5 alien sisters, and to one man who never wanted to be a hero, and the universe was watching. Daniel stood in the chamber of mist, his chest tight, his eyes darting from one glowing figure to the next. The sisters stood like statues, but there was something alive in their eyes, something more than alien, something he could not yet name. The first sister, Sarana, moved closer, her tall form wrapped in cloth that shimmered like liquid silver, her face calm, her tone sharp. "You are human, fragile and untested, yet the law binds us. You must prove you are worthy of standing among us." If you fail, Earth dies. Daniel felt his throat dry. He tried to speak, but words caught. Finally, he forced them out. I never asked for this, but I will try. His voice trembled, but he did not fall silent. Calith, the warrior sister, laughed, but it was not a friendly laugh. It was sharp like metal clashing. Try, yes, humans always try, but I will break you to see if you can rise again. Only the strong can lead our bond. Her burning eyes seemed to pierce his skin. Lyra stepped forward next, her smile soft but strange. Her fingers brushed the mist like it was silk, her voice gentle. Do not fear, Daniel. Not all tests are pain, some are kindness, some are trust. But even kindness can cut deep. She tilted her head, watching him as if she already knew his secrets. Then Vera's eyes met his, cold and sharp, her presence heavier than the others. I will test your mind, human. I will see if you can resist lies. If you can see truth where others see only illusion, your weakness will reveal itself to me. Her voice did not echo. It sliced through the silence. Finally, Lyra, the youngest, stepped forward, small yet fierce, her stare more powerful than her size. And I will test what you really are. Your truth cannot hide from me, even if you lie to yourself. I will find the cracks. Her tone was not cruel, but it carried a certainty that frightened him more than threats. Daniel realized then that each sister was not just a person, but a trial given form, strength, kindness, mind, truth, leadership, all waiting to crush him if he faltered. The chamber walls shifted again. Glowing symbols swirling above them, the ship seemed alive. Responding to the sisters, doors opened, and a corridor stretched ahead, filled with light and shadows. Serana raised her hand. You will live among us now. You will learn our customs, our ways, our laws. Escape is impossible, failure is death, but if you succeed, your people live. The corridor carried Daniel to a vast hall, larger than any cathedral, with walls that moved like waves of glass, stars visible through windows that curved around him. Creatures floated in tanks. Strange lights pulsed across the ceiling. The hall was alien yet eerily beautiful. The sisters walked with grace, their steps silent, while Daniel stumbled behind them, his human legs awkward compared to their perfect balance. As they passed, other aliens bowed slightly, their glowing eyes following him. Whispers echoed in languages he did not understand, but one word kept repeating, a word heavy with meaning. Bonded. Daniel felt exposed, as if the entire empire was waiting to watch him fail. He wanted to shout. He wanted to run, but he forced himself to keep walking. The sisters led him into a chamber filled with strange chairs and floating symbols, a place that seemed part dining room, part courtroom, part throne room. Serana motioned him to sit, her voice steady. You are now part of our clan. You will eat with us, train with us, be judged with us. Do not mistake this for comfort. Every moment is a test. Daniel sat, the chair shifting to fit his form, cold metal warming beneath him. Food appeared on the table, glowing fruits, steaming liquid, and dishes that pulsed faintly as if alive. Lyra leaned forward, her smile soft. Eat, Daniel. Our food will not harm you. It will make you stronger. It will prepare your body for the bond. He hesitated, but hunger and exhaustion pushed him. He lifted a glowing fruit and bit into it. The taste exploded, sweet, bitter, sharp, and warm all at once. His body shivered, yet he felt stronger, clearer, almost awake for the first time in his life. Calith laughed again, watching him struggle to swallow. Not bad for a human. Maybe you will not break so easily. Vera's eyes narrowed, studying him without speaking. Lyra kept staring too, unblinking, like she was peeling away his skin and reading the thoughts inside. The meal ended with silence, and Serana finally stood. Tomorrow begins the true trials. Tonight you will rest, but do not think this is mercy. Dreams in this place are tests as well. Daniel was led to a chamber prepared for him, its walls glowing faintly, its bed shaped like flowing stone, the air cool and heavy. Alone at last, he sat down, his hands trembling, his chest heavy, his mind racing. 5 sisters, 5 trials, and a law older than his species, he whispered. How can I survive this? But the walls gave no answer, only a faint hum, and then as he drifted into uneasy sleep, the whispers of the sisters echoed in his ears, each voice promising a different fate, each voice pulling him in a different direction. He closed his eyes, but even in the dark, their glowing faces burned in his memory, and Daniel knew tomorrow would not just test him. Tomorrow would break him. The sisters were not just companions. They were the Empire's judgment given form, and he, an ordinary man, was their chosen prisoner, their chosen husband, their chosen trial. And as the alien ship drifted across the stars, the universe held its breath. Daniel woke in a chamber that did not feel like a room. The walls curved like the inside of a living creature. Glowing veins of light pulsed across the surface. The bed under him was soft yet heavy, and the air smelled faintly of metal and strange flowers. He sat up slowly, remembering where he was, remembering the sisters, remembering the law. The door slid open without a sound. Serana entered, tall and calm, her silver cloak flowing behind her. "Rise, human. The Empire does not wait." Her tone was firm, not cruel, but heavy with command. Daniel obeyed, his legs shaky, his mind still clouded. He followed her into a wide hall where the other sisters already stood. Kalith sharpening a blade that hummed with energy. Lyra arranging small glowing orbs on a table. Vera reading shifting symbols in the air. And Elira watching quietly, her piercing eyes fixed on him the moment he entered. Serana spoke, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Daniel Hale, you live now under our rules. Your earthways mean nothing here. Every action will be judged, every word weighed. We will test you until the bond is proven, or until you break." Daniel nodded weakly, but Kalith barked out a laugh. He nods like a child. "Words mean more than nods. Show your strength, human, or you will not last a single day." She tossed him a weapon, long and curved, humming with alien light. Daniel caught it clumsily. The weight nearly pulling him down, the sisters watched. Kalith grinning, Serana unreadable, Vera disinterested, Lyra curious, and Elira still staring without blinking. "Fight," Kalith said simply. And before Daniel could answer, she lunged, her blade moving like lightning. He barely raised his own weapon in time. The clash rang through the hall, sparks flying. His arms shuddering under the force, he stumbled back, nearly falling. But Kalith pressed forward, striking again and again. Her face fierce, her laughter sharp. "Too weak, too slow. Is this the man who must bind us? Is this the human who carries a planet on his shoulders?" Daniel's breath came in gasps. Sweat ran down his face. His arms ached. But something inside him refused to give up. He tightened his grip, steadied his legs, and blocked the next strike with all his strength. His weapon ringing loudly. Kalith's eyes narrowed in surprise. "Better," she muttered, pulling back, lowering her blade. "Perhaps not entirely useless." Daniel's arms trembled, his chest burned, but he had not fallen. And that small victory burned inside him brighter than any fire. Lyra stepped forward next, her smile soft, her hands glowing faintly as she held one of the orbs. She placed it before him. The orb shone with warm light. "Now your heart will be tested, Daniel, not your body. Touch this, and it will show us who you are." Daniel hesitated, then slowly reached out, his fingers brushing the orb. Suddenly his mind filled with images. His family, his friends, the streets of his town, the sky of Earth. His laughter, his fears, his loneliness, everything spilled out of him, as if the orb was pulling his soul into the open. Lyra's eyes softened, her voice gentle. "You carry pain, but also kindness. You are afraid, yet you still stood. Perhaps you can give more than fear." She smiled, and for the first time, Daniel felt something other than judgment from them. But Vera quickly shattered the moment, her cold voice cutting through. Weak sentiment, illusions of comfort. The mind must be sharper than the heart. "Come with me." She turned and led him into a smaller chamber, walls covered with shifting symbols that twisted like smoke. "Tell me which are true and which are false," she said. The symbols swirling faster, voices whispering lies mixing with truths. Daniel's head spun. Words burned into his eyes, his mind aching. He forced himself to focus, to breathe, to find patterns, to trust instincts he did not know he had. Each answer came slower, harder, but with each one, the whispers grew fainter, the illusions less frightening, until at last Vera stopped, her cold eyes narrowing. "Not hopeless. Your mind bends but does not break for now." Exhausted, Daniel stumbled back into the hall where Elira was waiting, her small frame still and silent, her eyes sharp. She said only one thing. "Speak a lie." Daniel blinked, confused. "What?" "Speak a lie," Elira repeated, her tone flat, her gaze locked on his soul. He hesitated, then said softly, "I am not afraid," the words left his lips. But Elira's eyes flashed, her voice cutting like a blade. "False, your fear is heavy, you carry it like a chain." Daniel looked down, ashamed, but Elira stepped closer, her voice softer now. "You cannot hide from me. Truth is not your enemy, it is your only weapon. Remember that." The sisters gathered once more, each silent, each studying him. Serana finally spoke, her voice calm. "You have faced one day under our rules, you did not collapse, you did not flee. That is enough for now. Daniel sat on the cold floor, his body shaking, his mind burning, but somewhere deep inside, a spark of strength glowed brighter than before. He was not strong enough, not wise enough, not ready, but he had endured. The sisters turned and left the hall, their silver forms fading into the glowing corridors. Leaving him alone, Daniel whispered to himself, "I will survive this no matter what." But he knew survival was only the beginning, for the law was deeper than he understood, and the sisters were hiding something far darker than tests, something waiting beyond the walls, something that could decide not only his fate, but the fate of all humanity. And as he lay on the strange bed that night, the alien ship drifting silently through the stars, Daniel realized he was no longer just a man. He was a prisoner, a husband, and maybe one day, something far more dangerous, but the trials had only just begun. The alien ship drifted through the black ocean of space, its glowing veins pulsing like the heartbeat of a living creature. Inside the silver halls, Daniel walked slowly, his body tired, his mind heavy. Each day under alien rules pressing down harder, yet something inside him refused to break. He trained with Calith and her blade. He solved puzzles under Vera's cold eyes. He endured Lyra's strange kindness, and he faced Elira's piercing truths. Each sister tested him in her own way, each one different yet bound by the same law. But Daniel began to notice something strange, something hidden. When the sisters thought he was not listening, they spoke in whispers, their voices low, their eyes tense, words that did not match their calm faces. One night after another brutal day of trials, Daniel sat alone in his chamber, the walls glowing faintly, the air humming like a lullaby. And then the door slid open without warning. It was Lyra, the gentle sister, her silver eyes softer than the others. "Daniel," she said quietly, "you must not trust everything we say. The law is not what it seems." Daniel frowned, his voice hoarse. "What do you mean, the law is ancient, sacred? You told me this yourselves." Lyra stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly. "Yes, that is what we are told to say. But the truth is darker. The law was never made for peace. It was made for judgment. Your marriage to us is not about union. It is about survival, not just yours. But your entire species," Daniel's chest tightened. "Judgment. By who?" Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "By the Empire itself. Our people test new worlds. The law forces one man to bond with sisters. If he can endure, if he can unite, then the world is spared, welcomed into the Empire. But if he fails, if the sisters reject him, or if he collapses, then his world is erased, burned from the stars." The words cut into him like knives. Daniel shook his head. "So this is not marriage, this is a trial. A trap." Lyra nodded slowly, sadness in her voice. "Yes, and it is not only you who suffer. We too are trapped. We too never had a choice. When the law called, our names were chosen, and like you, we cannot refuse." For the first time, Daniel saw the sisters not as judges, but as prisoners bound by chains as heavy as his own. But before he could speak more, the door opened again. Calith stormed in, her eyes blazing. "Lyra, stop, you risk everything." She turned to Daniel, her voice sharp. "Forget what she said. The law is the law. Nothing changes it. Nothing breaks it." Daniel rose to his feet, anger boiling for the first time. "No, I will not forget. You test me, you push me, you threaten my world. But you hide the truth. Why? Why do you play this game with me?" Calith's jaw tightened. For a moment she almost raised her blade, but Serana entered then, calm as always, her tall frame filling the chamber. "Enough," she said, her voice echoing. "The human must know eventually. The Empire leaves no bonds untested. Lyra has only spoken what he would soon discover." Daniel turned to Serana, his voice shaking but strong. "So tell me everything. No more lies." Serana's glowing eyes studied him, silent for a long moment, then she spoke, her words like stone. "The truth is this, Daniel Hale, you are not here to marry for peace. You are here to be judged. If you can bond with us, if you can stand with us as one, then Earth will live. If you fail, then fire will fall. Already fleets wait in the dark, ready to erase your world if you break." Daniel staggered back, his heart pounding. The air around him felt heavy, suffocating. Billions of lives resting on his shoulders, not because of love, not because of law, but because of a cruel test disguised as tradition. Lyra reached out, her hand almost touching his. "We are not your enemies, Daniel. We did not choose this any more than you did. But if we are to survive, if your world is to survive, then we must find a way together." Vera's voice came from the doorway, cold but steady. And if he cannot, then earth is dust. Alira appeared last, her eyes sharper than ever, her small form casting a heavy shadow. The Empire watches, Daniel, not just us, not just the sisters, but the council, the fleets, the hidden judges. Every step you take is measured. Every word you speak is weighed. There is no escape. Silence filled the chamber. Daniel's breath shallow, his mind spinning, the weight of the universe pressing harder than ever. But somewhere in the storm of fear, a spark of defiance lit inside him. He raised his head, his voice low but steady. Then I will not break. If this is judgment, if this is a test, then I will endure it. Not just for me, but for my people, for Earth. The sisters watched him, each face unreadable. But for a moment, Lyra's lips curved into the smallest smile. Calith's eyes narrowed with reluctant respect. Vera tilted her head as if curious, and even Alira blinked slowly, her gaze softening just slightly. But Serana, the eldest, spoke last, her tone calm, yet carrying a weight that shook the air. We shall see, Daniel Hale. We shall see if humanity deserves to live among the stars, or vanish into dust. And as the ship glided through the endless void, the truth now laid bare. Daniel realized the trial was not just about survival. It was about proving humanity itself, and the universe, vast and cold, was waiting for his answer. Daniel stood at the edge of the great hall, the truth of the alien law still burning in his chest. The sisters had revealed that his marriage was not a bond of peace but a trial of survival. If he failed, Earth would burn. If he succeeded, humanity would rise into the Empire. It was not choice, it was judgment. For days he had trained, fought, endured, but now the weight felt heavier. Every step he took echoed with billions of voices depending on him. Every breath carried the fate of his species. The sisters continued their tests. Calith forced him to fight again and again, her blade striking like lightning, her laughter sharp. She pushed him until his arms shook and his body bled. But Daniel rose each time, refusing to fall, refusing to quit. You are stubborn, Calith said one evening, sweat shining on her skin. Her burning eyes narrowed. Perhaps too stubborn to die. There was no kindness in her words, but no mockery either. Only a strange respect growing in the shadows of her fury. Lyra tested him differently, sitting with him in quiet chambers filled with glowing orbs, asking him about Earth, about family, about love. Her soft eyes studying his face as he spoke. You carry loneliness, Daniel, but also hope. Your people fight each other, yet you still dream of unity. This is rare, she whispered, her smile gentle, and Daniel felt something stir inside him. Vera kept her cold trials, forcing him into illusions of fear, twisting his memories, making him doubt his own mind. But Daniel learned to push through, to find the truth in lies, to anchor himself with thoughts of his people, of Earth, of the promise he had made to endure. And Alira, youngest and sharpest, always waited in silence, her test simple yet impossible. Tell me who you are, she demanded one day. Daniel hesitated, speaking of his ordinary life, his mistakes, his regrets, but she shook her head. That is what you were, not what you are. Who are you now? Her words cut deeper than blades, and Daniel struggled to answer. Slowly, painfully, something began to change. The sisters who had once looked at him with scorn now looked at him with something else. Not trust yet, but not contempt either. Serana herself admitted. You do not break easily, human. That is unusual. Her calm voice carrying a hint of surprise. But beyond the sisters, the Empire watched. The council of unseen judges measured every moment. Fleets waited in the dark, their weapons ready. Humanity balanced on a knife edge one night. Daniel was summoned to the highest chamber. The sisters stood together, their forms glowing in the silver light. Serana spoke first. The council grows restless. They believe you are weak. They demand the final trial soon. Daniel's heart pounded, his voice shaking. I am not ready, Calith barked. No one is ready. You either stand or you fall. There is no middle path. Lyra stepped closer, her hand almost brushing his shoulder. But you have grown, Daniel, more than we expected. Perhaps enough to survive. Vera's cold voice cut through. Do not fill him with false comfort. The final trial is not about survival. It is about unity. He must stand not alone, but with us together as one. Daniel frowned. Together, but you are not united. You fight among yourselves. You test each other as much as me. For the first time, silence fell heavy. The sisters looked at one another, and Alira, youngest but truest, whispered. He is right. Serana's face tightened. But she did not deny it. We are bound by blood, but we are not always one. Our law demands perfection, Our empire demands unity, yet even we fracture. That is why the trial exists, to see if an outsider can do what we cannot. Daniel's chest burned with sudden clarity. So it is not only me who is being tested, it is all of you. It is whether we can stand together, human and alien, stranger and sister, not just me alone. The sisters exchanged glances. The air heavy, Lyra's lips curved with a faint smile. Calith's fierce eyes softened slightly. Vera tilted her head as if in thought, and Lyra nodded once sharply. For the first time, Daniel felt the distance between them shrink. Not much, but enough to light a spark of hope. The following days were different. The tests became less about crushing him and more about connection. Calith sparred with him but slowed her strikes, teaching him form, not just pain. Lyra spoke longer with him, asking about human art, human songs. Vera challenged his logic but listened to his answers. And Alira pressed him for truths, but truths he could finally begin to face. Serana still watched, calm and silent, yet her eyes carried something new, something like possibility. And then the warning came, a deep hum through the ship, lights flashing, the voice of the Empire itself echoing. The final trial approaches, prepare. Judgment awaits. Daniel stood with the sisters, his body trembling but his voice firm. I will not face this alone if we are to survive. We face it together. Serana nodded once, her calm mask breaking just enough to reveal a spark of fire. Then let it be so, human. Tomorrow we face the trial. Tomorrow we decide if your world lives or dies. The sisters stood with him, 5 against the Empire, 1 man against the stars. And in that moment, Daniel was no longer just a prisoner, no longer just a man dragged into an alien law. He was something else, something new. A leader born not of power but of endurance. A man who carried humanity's defiance in his heart. The turning point had come, and the universe would never forget it. The day of judgment arrived. The alien ship slowed in the void of space, stars burning like cold fire outside its windows. The sisters stood in silence, their silver eyes glowing, and Daniel stood among them, his body trembling but his spirit firm. Today was the trial. Today the Empire would decide if Earth lived or burned. The chamber of trials opened like a mouth, vast and endless, filled with pillars of light and shadows that twisted like storms. Voices echoed all around. The council was not seen but felt, their presence pressing on Daniel's mind like a crushing weight. Every breath heavy, every step harder. Serana stepped forward, her voice steady. We enter as one, we stand as one, remember this. Her eyes turned to Daniel, for the first time carrying something close to trust. Daniel nodded, his voice low but strong. Together. The trial began with the first test. Calith's domain. Walls shifting into an arena of stone and flame. Creatures of energy surged from the ground. Towering beasts with glowing fangs. Calith raised her blade. But Daniel stepped forward, lifting his own weapon, his arm shaking but his grip firm. Calith looked at him, fire in her eyes, then nodded. They fought side by side, Daniel blocking, Calith striking, their blades ringing, the beasts crashing down. Yet they did not fall. When the last creature dissolved into smoke, Calith placed her hand on his shoulder. You are stubborn, human. I respect that, her voice sharp but filled with pride. The scene shifted. Lyra's trial, a garden of light blooming from the floor, each flower glowing, each one whispering with voices of love, loss, hope, and fear. Daniel felt his heart ache, his mind drowned in memories. But Lyra stood beside him, her hand on his arm. Do not run from the pain, Daniel. Accept it, hold it, and move forward. Daniel breathed deeply. He let the voices flow through him, not breaking, not denying, but carrying them. His memories of family, of Earth, of all who waited for him. He stood tall, and Lyra's smile glowed like the flowers around them. You have heart, more than I expected. The chamber shifted again. Vera's trial, illusions rising like storms, his worst fears twisting before his eyes. Fire consuming Earth, his family turning away, the sisters vanishing into smoke. His body breaking into dust, Daniel staggered. But Vera's cold voice cut through. Find the truth, Daniel. It hides in the storm. He closed his eyes, focused on the steady rhythm of his breath, on the feeling of the sisters beside him. Real, not illusions. He opened his eyes and stepped through the storm, the visions shattering around him. Vera's cold gaze softened slightly. You see clearer than I thought possible. The fourth trial came. Lyra's domain, silence heavier than stone. Nothing but her voice. Speak your truth, she said. her small figure standing before him, eyes sharp as blades. Daniel hesitated, then spoke, his voice raw. I am afraid I am not a hero. I never wanted this, but I will not give up. Not for me, not for my world. I will endure, even if I am broken. I will endure. Elira stared at him for a long moment, then finally nodded once, her piercing gaze softening. That is truth. And truth is enough. And then the final test came, Serana's trial, the chamber shifting into endless darkness, the council's presence heavier than ever, their voices echoing, unity, show unity or perish. The sisters stood in a circle, their glowing forms surrounding Daniel. Serana raised her hand. This is where we fail, where all others fail. We are 5, you are 1. The Empire demands 1 heart, 1 bond, 1 soul. Can you unite us? Daniel looked at each of them. Kalith with her fire, Lyra with her kindness, Vera with her cold logic, Elira with her piercing truth, Serana with her leadership. All different, all divided, yet all bound by the same chains. He stepped into the center, his voice shaking but strong. I cannot be stronger than Kalith. I cannot be wiser than Vera. I cannot be softer than Lyra. I cannot be sharper than Elira, and I cannot lead like Serana. But together with me we are not pieces, we are whole. The sisters' eyes glowed brighter. The circle pulsed with light. The council's voice thundered. Show us. Daniel reached out his hands. Kalith gripped his first, her fierce strength flowing into him. Lyra placed her hand gently, warmth flooding his chest. Vera hesitated but then touched his shoulder, her cold logic steady. Elira placed her small hand last, her piercing gaze softening as she whispered, Truth binds us. And finally Serana laid her hand over all of theirs, her calm voice steady. We are 1. Light exploded through the chamber. The darkness shattered. The council's pressure broke. The Empire's silence turned into shock. Daniel and the sisters stood together, united, unbroken. The council's final voice echoed, slow and heavy. Humanity has passed. Earth is spared. The law is fulfilled. The Empire welcomes your kind. The chamber dissolved. The ship hummed with new energy. Fleets that had waited to burn Earth now turned away. The planet below saved. Daniel collapsed to his knees, exhausted, tears burning his eyes, but the sisters stood with him, Serana lifting him to his feet. You are no longer just human. Daniel Hale, you are bonded, and because of you, your people live. Kalith smirked. You fought like a warrior. Lyra smiled. You felt like a heart. Vera nodded. You thought like a mind, Elira whispered. And you spoke true. Daniel looked at them all, his voice quiet but filled with fire. I was only a man, but together we became more. That is what humanity is, that is why we endure. And somewhere in the stars, across the vast empire, whispers spread. Whispers of the human who united the sisters, the man who carried his world in his hands, the species that turned judgment into mercy. For the first time, the universe looked at Earth not with contempt, but with fear and respect. And Daniel Hale, the man who never wanted to be chosen, had changed everything. The alien law was fulfilled, but humanity had rewritten its meaning, and the stars would never forget.